Mother's last request. Margie Woolcroft sat on her bed, feeling numb. Not numbness, because she was hooked up to an IV, through which in turn the medication that helped her control the pain flowed, but emotional numbness. She never thought she could feel this way about anyone. It is not a single, simple emotion, but a whole whirlwind. Sometimes pity prevails, then regret, then anger, relief, confusion. When she thinks different things, she feels different things. But today, to accomplish what she just did, she requires numbness. She feels guilty, but she meant well. Emotionally, she feels guilty for all of this, and she has a hard time dealing with it. She's keeping a terrible secret, but the events that started it all, it was someone who didn't do something. But now she feels deeply ashamed. "I'll formalize this in the next few days," the pretty young lawyer said as she tucked the envelope of papers Margie had just signed into her briefcase. "The notary has already left. But for the moment, your will has been drawn up." Margie nodded to the pretty blonde. The idea of a lawyer was still a little new to her, even after she'd watched the TV series L.A. Law and then Boston Legal closely, and it amused her, especially since the woman was doing that kind of work for people in hospitals. Maybe Bill Shakespeare was wrong. "Thank you," Margie said. "I appreciate your advice. I didn't know how to explain it." "That's all right, ma'am," she said, smiling, standing up and adjusting her clothes. "Legal language gets to everyone. It's one of the reasons I had to go to college." "God bless you," Margie confirmed. "Call me if you need anything," the lawyer said, swinging Margie's leg lightly across the blanket. "I hope that calmed you down a little." Margie only grimaced. "I'll visit you in a couple of weeks, okay?" the lawyer asked. "Thank you," Margie nodded. "Let the nurse know when you're coming, and I'll try not to be high. I can't stand the way my brain is working from all this." Margie gestured to the many tubes and wires leading to her body. "I'll try. Have a good day." With those words, the lawyer left, heading for another patient in the hospital room. Margie watched the woman walk out the door and sighed. The pain was returning. A faint, constant ache and weakness was rising up through her. She reduced her pain medication a little so she could talk to the lawyer while in her right mind. She reached out and pressed a button on the edge of the bed. "Yes, can I help you?" A thin voice came over the intercom on the bed. "Yes, I need to sit in my chair, need some sunshine." "We'll send someone over as soon as we can," the voice said, followed by a disconnecting sound. Margie really wanted a cigarette. Margie smoked 2 cigarettes, assuring the nice but bored orderly that she would be all right. The weakness hadn't set in yet, and the pain was bearable. He stepped back. Probably to play with his phone alone or get a snack, she thought. She was already halfway through the pack that her friend Cynthia had surreptitiously given her. She wasn't going to take anything else from CN, as she'd made clear to her. Funny, she'd wanted to smoke ever since her husband had made her quit in 1993, but hadn't dared to start again even after he died 5 years ago. When you have stage 3 stomach cancer and stage 4 is around the corner, you no longer care how bad things might be with your lungs. Sometimes, if she knew the right orderly was on duty, she would set up outside, where the wind carried away the smoke of the evidence, and enjoy a cigarette. The orderly knew everything, but as long as she didn't see it, no big deal was going on. Margie didn't expect him to be working here much longer, but until then, if she felt like having a cigarette, she would. For the last half hour, Margie sat and thought. What she wants to do is a waste of time, she knows that, but she feels the need to strike back. She doesn't know how to explain it. Maybe to vent her pain? But in the last 20 minutes, she's decided to make a phone call, and damn those attack bulls. Her hand reached for her purse, and she saw that her hands were shaking again. She squinted her eyes determinedly, and reached into her huge canvas purse, where she kept everything she thought she might need for the short walk. Rummaging through the bag, she found a towel, a compact umbrella, 2 small purses for change, a collar for her dog, paperback novels, and a bag of sugar-free hard candy, and of course she found her cell phone at the bottom. Without thinking long, she fumbled for the right number and pressed the call button, watching her finger waver in the air above the phone. Listening to the beeps, she pulled herself together and wished she'd dared to have a third cigarette. "Hello?" On the other end of the line came the voice of her only daughter. "Hello, Mary," Margie answered, holding back from launching into a planned tirade. "Mom, hi," Mary said without much joy in her voice. In fact, it seemed to Margie that her voice sounded a little tearful. "How are you doing today?" "Oh, it's better and worse," Margie replied. "I had some things to do and I wanted to talk to you since you haven't been visiting or calling me." "Mom, I'm sorry," Mary pleaded, feeling guilty. "It's just that my life is such a mess right now." "I'm sure it is," Margie said after a pause. Thanks to Kimmy and Junior, she had more than a clue what was going on. "I'll try to get here as soon as I can, okay?" Margie added. "I need to talk to you anyway." "I'm sure you do," Margie said. "I'm sure you do." There was silence on Mary's part. "I want to ask you something first, Mary, and then I need to tell you something," Margie said, moving forward. "Can you be patient with your mother?" It wasn't really a question. "Yes," answered the daughter. "Why?" Margie asked. Her tone wasn't questioning. She just wanted to hear the rationale once more. Every time she did, it made her angry, but she wanted it. One more time, one last time. She needed the anger to get through this. "Why what?" Mary dodged the question. "Don't," Margie said softly, gathering all the strength her anger gave her. "Don't play this game with me. Not with me. Don't you dare." "Okay," Mary sighed, resigned to the fact that she would have to face her mother's anger again. She had to get through this. She was going to need Margie's help, and soon. "I guess I'm tired," Mary began. "The kids have been too much. Kimmy is almost a teenager, and she had so many grievances. She questioned everything and was always being mean to me. Little Mary is a constant source of energy, and I was tired of cleaning up after her all the time. Michael wasn't around as often as I needed him to be, and when he was, he had a drink in his hand." Margie listened intently, holding the phone to her ear. "I didn't want to start. I really didn't," Mary explained. "It was the only respite I had. Twice a week I went out for groceries and did a little shopping. It was nice to get out of the apartment and not be a mom for a few hours." "I remember that," Margie added. "I met Kurt at the grocery store I stopped at on my way to the store," Mary explained again. She felt like she was explaining this to her mother all the time. "He thought I worked there and tried to hand me my order as I walked by." Margie heard the smile in Mary's voice at this memory. "He was different from Mike," Mary continued. "Kurt was so positive, and his personality. He always made people reach out to him, was so likable." Margie noted, "Was. He was an assistant vice president at QMEC, traveling and talking to people all over the Middle East," Mary said. "He was so different from Mike. Mike was just a truck driver, you know?" "There's the comparison," Margie pointed out. "Mike was gone 14 hours a day, slept 6, and always had a beer in his hand when he was awake. He paid attention to the girls, helped Kimmy with her homework, which I never knew how to do." Margie remembered how Mary had done in school, being solidly in the middle. "But he never had time for me," Mary thought. "I'm so sick of this life." Margie heard Mary sigh. "I was going to go back to work," Mary said. "Junior's going to go on to college, and I want to get out of the house. Anywhere. I've spent too much time in this tiny box with the screaming kids, with their music, with Kimmy's attitude, and—" That part Margie missed. She knew it. "But Kurt was different. Bright. Happy," Mary finished. "He made me happy. I really needed to be happy." "But you didn't tell him," Margie accused, her voice flat, stating a fact she knew. "No," Mary said, lowering her voice. "I let Kurt think I was an unemployed waitress. He never saw my ring, the first time I wore gloves. After that, I took the ring off." Margie's eyes narrowed at that. "I didn't want to sleep with him," Mary declared. "He was just so sweet. Never pressured me, never told me I had to do this or that, never had to pick up the kids, take them anywhere, clean up after them. You know, Kurt was different. Just what I needed." Margie listened silently. Kurt was waiting for me at that cafe when I told him what time I'd be there. Waiting for me. Was here, this important man who had money, who could have chosen anyone, and he was waiting for me. If I'd said I'd be at the deli on Thursday around 2, he'd have been there. If I'd said I'd be there at 3 in the morning on Sunday, he'd have been there for me. For me. I know it. That kind of attention, it's overwhelming, Mary said, calming down. I needed that attention. Not as a mommy, not as Mary, Mike's truck driver's wife, not as a woman picking up her kid from school. Just me. Mary. Mary paused, and it seemed to Margie that she was pulling herself together. The first time we made love, Kurt just proposed. Would you like to take dessert to my house? Mary said, both regret and excitement in her voice. Margie didn't understand how she could do it. From here on, things just evolved. Margie knew how it was. Her husband was charming, too, at least in her mind. Mary's charming looked a little different. And Kurt didn't know you were married until now? Margie asked, anger trembling in her voice. No, Mary admitted. I told you Kurt didn't know I was married at all. I used my maiden name, Woolcroft. Margie knew it, but she was still angry every time she remembered it. To her, it was deception, pure and simple. Mary was ashamed, and she hid her identity. Margie never understood how one could be ashamed of being a mother and married to a man who was trying his best. How often did you sleep with Kurt? Margie asked. After that first time? Mary asked. Margie was silent, waiting for an answer, which soon followed. After that first time, it took about 2 weeks before I slept with him again. We both wanted it very badly. He, playing hard to get. I felt guilty. Not guilty enough, Margie thought. It was 2 weeks, Mary sighed. Then we waited another week after that second time. Margie remained silent. Then it was all the time, Mary continued. We just started meeting at his apartment. So you slipped out for a couple hours here and there during the week? Margie asked for confirmation. Mostly. Mary always answered the question this way. Often twice, sometimes 3 times, sometimes none. Go on. That's almost all of it, Mary said. No, not all of it, Margie said, trying to keep the growl out of her voice. For the most part, she succeeded. Where did the end begin? I had a delay. Margie hated to admit it again. It was 5 weeks, then 6. I get irregular periods sometimes, so... Margie waited. But at 7 weeks, I went and bought a urine test, Mary continued. It came back positive. All the urine tests she bought were positive. Over the course of 2 days, Mary took 4 tests. I didn't know who it was from, Mary confirmed. This not knowing, it made everything feel so homey. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. It took me a few days to work up the courage to tell Mike that I was pregnant again. I didn't tell him that it could be Kurt's. It's in my memory. That conversation. Margie could hear the sadness in Mary's voice. He was silent, and I could see that he was thinking about the expense of having another child, thinking about how to set things up, and we were already at a disadvantage because of medical bills and child support. And all he said was, I love you, honey. We'll find a way. Do you think it's going to be a girl or a boy? This Margie understood. She also understood that hiding from her husband the fact that the baby might not be his was not an activity for the faint of heart. Unfortunately, Mary was able to keep it from Mike. When did you decide to leave? Margie asked. I still don't think I really decided. I just did it. Margie waited again. Mary had to say it. Kurt was going to the Middle East again, Mary spoke. Said it was going to happen, that his 6-month internship was ending, and his boss wanted him to come back to work. You know Kurt speaks 4 languages. Margie didn't really care even if he spoke Martian. Kurt suddenly asked me, would you like to come with me? He was on his way to Kuwait. There was nothing wrong with my passport since we had gone to Canada that time. That was the first thought that popped into my head after he asked me if I could go. Margie gritted her teeth. Not one thought about the girls back home. I swear I didn't think much of it, Mary said, guilt clearly audible in her voice. I know how wrong it is. Later that day, I realized how wrong it was. I knew. I know. And yet you kept going. Kept going. Margie thought to herself. I said yes. Mary regained the strength in her voice. Said yes, got up from his bed and said I'd come back and we could leave. I know how wrong that sounds, Mary admitted. But I really didn't think it was. This whole thing, it was what I wanted. I wanted to be away from my tiny confined life, stuck in this apartment, doing the same unpleasant things over and over again, with Mike only occasionally showing up early in the morning and late at night. And this was the way out. Silence again, and Margie began to wait. And I wouldn't have to explain about the baby in my womb. Mary said it with a strange note in her voice. I thought I could somehow get Kurt to go along with it, recognize the baby as his, if it wasn't even his. I thought maybe then it could work, Mike and me. I was always so tired around Mike, we didn't... Margie stopped talking. So I went back to the apartment, Mike's apartment. I don't know, it was... I kept trying to figure out how to make it so that Mike and the girls would know. I kept walking around and I couldn't figure out how to do it. I hadn't left yet, and I felt so guilty. But not guilty enough to end the affair, Margie thought. My feet led me to the apartment. Once I was there, I just stopped, Mary said. This part was easier for her. I thought about what to do for maybe 2 seconds as soon as I walked through the door and looked around the tiny room, and everything I'd been struggling with on the way in came into crystal clear view. I didn't need anything. Kurt said he'd buy whatever I needed. He knew I was poor anyway and didn't have much. I never let him know what I had in my house, in Mike's apartment. Kurt thought I was a waitress, carefree and available. I never corrected him. I didn't want anything from Mike, Mary continued. At that moment, I wanted nothing more than to be free. Kimmy was at school, and Junior was with a neighbor. But if I was there for too long, the neighbor would come over. She always knew when we were home. So I wrote a note. I don't even remember what I wrote, Mary said. I know what you wrote, Marge said. I saw it. There was silence again. Mary didn't know how to answer. You told Mike and the girls you were leaving, that it had become too much for you. You're 2 months pregnant and it's too much for you. I told them not to look for you, Margie told her daughter. Yes, that's right, Mary confirmed. Margie fell silent again. She knew Mary would pick up the story. I took my passport, wrote a note, took off the ring, and left, Mary continued. I threw the phone into the sewer grate. I thought I was getting free. Margie felt the swirl of emotions again. None of them were positive. It helped her to think that she had made the right decision, which she would soon tell her daughter about. And then what? Margie asked. I went back to Kurtz's apartment and with a broad smile said, Here I am, she replied. We were both so happy. I was free and with the man I was sure I loved. Turns out I really did love him, wholeheartedly. The next day we packed up his things, of which there wasn't much. Did some shopping for me, went to the airport and boarded his company plane. I met his boss and he turned out to be nice. Then we flew away. And then what happened? Margie asked. She always asked that, but Mary never told her. I don't want to talk about it, Mom, Mary said with caution in her voice. I don't care, said Margie, echoing her daughter's tone. I want to know. We're having a baby, okay? Mary said, anger in her voice. Then we got married. We were happy. Is that enough? No, not enough, Margie came back. I need answers. Mom, Mary sighed. Maybe later, okay? There won't be a later. I guess, thought Margie. You've got to answer me, Mary Margaret. Margie was not pleased. I know, Mother, Mary confirmed. I know, just not now, okay? Margie gritted her teeth. Then she remembered she had other questions. Tell me, why did you come to Kimmy's wedding? After you told me about it, I was stunned when you told me. All the things I imagined happening to my girls. I know I gave up something precious. Mom, believe me, I regretted it. That's what I regretted. Every day, and I had no one to talk to about it. Those years, those missed moments. I was upset when I continued. You gave up on them, Margie thought. After that, you shouldn't be surprised anymore. But when you told me, it all came over me. Mary spoke in detail. All the things I'd missed, all the things that had been. I know I'm the one who left, but I miss them, Mom. I miss my little ones. Margie was trembling harder now. I decided I had to come. How did you get in? Margie asked. I used your name. You what? I got ahead of Kurt, who asked to check in with me while he was parking, Mary said with guilt in her voice. I didn't have your invitation, but I convinced the man at the podium that I was you. Mary, Margie growled, her trembling now reaching her head. I know, Mom. I'm so sorry. Margie tried to pull herself together, emotionally and physically. If the orderly had looked across the yard, he would have seen her shaking. Why did you bring Kurt with you? Margie asked, tilting the phone to keep from breathing loudly into it. She was convinced that one had to keep one's temper in the presence of children, and she thought Mary was being very, very childish. I didn't know Kurt was back until the day before yesterday. I told him I was going to go to a friend's wedding when he was overseas and he'd finished work early. And he wanted to go. Because, he wanted to do something with me. Kurt was like that. He always wanted to be with me, Mary said slowly. Margie noted again in the way Mary spoke that was and wanted were in the past tense. I couldn't say no to him. It's just that Kurt has such a temper, and I thought that maybe, even though I was planning on just staying in the parking lot. But I'd have to go in with Kurt, or he'd start asking questions. And I saw how many people were there. Kimmy has so many friends, Mom. She's grown up so beautiful. Mike and I did a good job, Margie said, an undertone ringing in her voice. Yes, we did, Mary confirmed regretfully. I'm glad. Why are you wearing white? Margie asked, though it was a small thing in the midst of the commotion. Too many people were asking Kimmy, and no one knew. It wasn't white, Mary protested. It was just a light brown summer cotton jacket with a skirt to match. And the blouse I was wearing was white. It only looked white in the sunlight. It looks very white to me, thought Margie. You don't wear white to someone else's wedding, Mary. You know that. Mom, it wasn't white. It's perfectly acceptable for American women to wear what I wear in the Middle East. The trembling had not subsided. Now Margie's cell phone was thumping against her cheek. You're lucky Junior didn't see you, Margie said. Why? That girl. The first girl you ever named after yourself? Margie found it hard to restrain herself. Now her other hand was bouncing in her lap as well. Is very, very angry with you. She is not submitting to her father's control. Mary didn't answer anything. The silence gave Margie a chance to calm down a little. She pressed her left hand to her knees, trying to hold back a shiver. Kimmy's better, but she doesn't understand you, Margie said after a while. She's not alone. Kimmy asks questions. Junior doesn't. Mike doesn't understand either. There was no response from the other end of the connection. Mary, I think you need to stay away from them, Margie said to her daughter. Mom, I need them. Now that I've seen them, I thought, Mary said, stammering. You silly little fool, Margie snarled. Don't you dare hurt my granddaughters. Mary had nothing to say. Margie thought she heard a quiet sob. It was hard to tell. There was a ringing in her ears. You've already done so much damage to those girls. All because you're such a selfish little cheater. I'm sorry, Mommy. Mary said it so far away and very quietly. No, Margie growled, closing her eyes in concentration. You can never do that again. You made your decision as a grown-up girl, and you can't act like the child you are now. I don't know why. Margie had to stop. The rolling colors behind her eyelids showed. I don't know what your father and I did wrong to make you act this way. But, you let me think you were dead for 8 years. Your father died thinking that. How could you? The phone was silent. The metallic howl in Margie's ears grew louder, overpowering everything else. You hurt all of us! Margie would have screamed if she could have, but her breath seemed to be short. We all loved you. Those girls loved you. Mike loved you. And you just ran away like it was some silly fairy tale. How could you do this to us? I'm sorry, Margie finally heard. Margie sat in the chair, trying to catch her breath and stop shaking. She grabbed her wrist with her left hand, trying to pull herself together. I should have told them when you called me, Margie admitted to her daughter. I knew I was wrong then, and I'm doubly wrong now. I lied to those girls and to Mike without telling them. Kept that lie for almost 3 years. I was just grateful to have you back. But now that I know more, and what you did, Mary Margaret, you should have stayed away. Why is Margie so hot? It's a nice day, but not as hot as all this. Mother, I couldn't, Mary said, and now Margie could hear her crying. I missed you so much. I wanted you to meet my family. I wanted to share with you. You had to know, and I felt so guilty for what I did. Margie sighed. That was Mary's reasoning. Margie never realized where she had learned to think that way. I understand, Mary, Margie said. But you were just making new secrets and laying them on top of other secrets, and now it's all on top of you, and you've made me a part of it. Mommy, I need help, Mary said, sobbing. What now? Margie thought to herself. The IV tube bounced as she was shaken, and the hole in the side of her stomach was suddenly bothering her. Margie waited for the baby to express her needs. Kurt and I have to leave home next week, Mary said, her crying becoming more and more obvious. I need somewhere to live. Kurt has frozen all the assets, and I can only get the money after the divorce. Margie immediately realized where this was going. You want to move into this house? Margie said, referring to the house she had shared with her husband before he died and then lived alone until she was sent to a terminal cancer ward. Please? Mary asked. What about little Mary? Margie asked, her mind suddenly clear, the shivers, pain, and sorrows forgotten. They hadn't disappeared, but no matter how angry Margie was with her daughter, she would still look after her third granddaughter, especially since Mary was doing so poorly. She's not with me. Mary's voice sounded depressed now, even more depressed. Kurt is going to get full custody in the divorce, if he can get it. He says he's afraid Mike might make some kind of claim. Margie didn't know how that would turn out, but, maybe it's for the best that Mary won't be around her children. None of them. It's going to be very hard on her, Mom, Mary continued. She needs me. She doesn't understand what's going on, only in the most general terms. Like the other Mary we know? Margie accused. Oh God, Mom! Margie had to take no more than a second to think. If little Mary is not with Mary, but with her father, her mind is already made up. Mary Margaret, you have no right to move into my house! Margie found the strength to speak loudly into the receiver, struggling to hold the phone to her mouth. Can you hear me? No! Mommy, I want you to know, I signed a new will today, Margie said, turning down the volume. The sound in her ears suddenly distracted her. This was getting out of control. I'm giving the house to Junior. She'll go to school next year next to it, and she may well live there. And if she doesn't, let her do what she wants with it. The crying was barely audible over the noise, which was now becoming more like the roar of water. Most of my money is going to Kimmy, Margie continued. She needed to finish this. But don't worry, most of my life insurance money is going to little Mary in a college trust, which you won't be able to touch. Mary had to catch her breath, which seemed impossible to reach. There just wasn't enough air anymore. I'm going to tell Mike and the girls everything, Margie wheezed. The whole story like you told me. I won't participate in your lies anymore. She's killing me. They have to get rid of the pain, Mary Margaret. The pain you keep causing. Mommy, no! One last thing when I die. I want the girls, Mike's girls, to come to my funeral so it's over. My funeral should be for my loved ones to grieve, not me, and not for them to doubt themselves and everything. Because if you go, Mary Margaret, Junior will not go. Your daughter hates you so much. And right now, her pain is more important to me than yours. Please, Mommy, no. If you want things to change, little girl, then you have to start doing the right thing, Margie spat out at her child. No more chances. This is the best thing you can do for your dying mother. It's the only thing I want you to do. But right now, Margie thought she heard sobs coming from her phone, but she wasn't sure. She was almost done, though. Right now, I sympathize with you. Every mother is overwhelmed. We've all endured it, Margie said slowly. You're the only one I know who's gotten away from it. Fix it. Take your medicine. Grow up, Mary Margaret. Margie opened her eyes and tried to hold the phone in front of her. She managed to coordinate her shaking enough to press the red cancel button on the screen, and then she finished. 10 minutes later, an orderly came out from around the corner and looked for Margie where he had left her earlier. She was sitting in a chair, her huge bag lying beside her. Her head was down on her chest. He quickly walked over to her and turned his head to see what was happening to the gaunt woman. He had been taught never to yell or scream, to be calm with patience. Worry could have a bad effect on them. Margie? He asked, stepping closer. Honey? Margie didn't react. Margie? He asked, kneeling down and putting his hand on her shoulder. Ugh. Margie exhaled, her eyes opening as if in surprise. She looked around for a moment, then stopped her gaze on the orderly. Oh, how are you doing, sweetheart? The orderly asked. I could use a cigarette. The end.